let's talk about what I'm going to be reading this month. I kind of took a break from reading unintentionally. Things were kind of rough. I just don't read when I'm super stressed out. So it's been a while. I pretty much didn't read all summer. I have some books that I haven't talked about on my channels that I did read, and I have been reading some comics, but for the most part, haven't been reading very much. So this will be my first foray back into reading in 2 months, and I've probably picked too many books for this TBR. I really like doing readathons, and I wanted to join a bunch of them this month, but I've decided that it's just easier to kind of let myself have free reign. So I decided to just pick spooky fall reads that seemed appropriate for this time of year. The first book on my TBR is Velocity by Dean Koontz. This isn't particularly spooky, but I do like having kind of a crime book in between some more spooky books because crime is just really up my alley more. These are the type of books I go for a lot. This one is about a guy who's put in a bad position by a serial killer of some sort who gives him a choice between 2 different people that can be murdered, and it's up to him to decide who. I like that premise. It's fun. I'm excited to see what Koontz does with it. The next book on my TBR is The Lock Artist by Steve Hamilton. I'm a huge fan of heist movies. I don't know why. I don't know what it is about them that appeals to me, but I've always just had a huge soft spot for them. Like, if I was to say anything is my guilty pleasure, it would probably be heist movies. My favorite one is The Italian Job actually, that might have been the movie that started it too. My favorite actor is Edward Norton, and that's why I watched The Italian Job, is because I wanted to watch all of his movies, and I just fell in love with it for some reason, and now I've owned a ton of heist movies. But I've never read a heist book. So the other day I decided to Google all the different heist books I could come up with, and this was one of the ones on the list that people said was really good. So I bought it off of Kobo right away. So I own this on ebook. This is about an 18-year-old boy who finds he has a skill for picking locks. And he ends up getting into a life of crime and trying to find his way out of it. Which actually kind of reminds me of the plot to Baby Driver. Of course, Baby is good at being a driver and not picking locks, but kind of the same idea, and that's like one of my favorite recent movies, so I'm into it. The next book on my list is The Ritual by Nevill. I actually didn't know that this was a book. I saw that there was a movie called The Ritual on Netflix, and I always put it on the list of horror movies to watch, but I never quite got to it. But once I saw this book, I was like, great, I'll read the book first. I saw it on sale on Kobo, so I bought it from there, so I own it on ebook. So this is about a group of friends who decide to take a camping trip into the wilderness. They come across this old cabin in the woods, and they find that there are the remains of some old ancient ritual. They end up being the prey for whatever has been summoned. That sounds super cool. I enjoy a good horror premise, and of course anything involving rituals and occult things is always interesting. Hopefully this book will actually be scary, and hopefully I'll enjoy the movie too, because I definitely plan on watching it. The Devil Crept In by Ania Ahlborn. I borrowed this book on Kindle Unlimited, and I'm really hoping to get through some of my Kindle Unlimited books so that I can cancel it, because I just don't use it that much, especially since I already have Script, so this is definitely on my list. This is about some kids who go missing in a town. That's pretty much all there is to do with it. They don't know where the kids are going or what's happening to them, and obviously this book you're gonna find out. I think that Ania's books have something to do with more supernatural elements than killer elements, but I could be totally wrong. I've heard good things from somebody in their videos, but I can't remember who. But it intrigued me because I love the idea of a woman horror writer, because I think there should be more of them, so. The next book is A Head Full of Ghosts by Tremblay. This is about a young girl who gets possessed and a documentary crew who come in to film it. And it kind of is about everything involving that, but also about the events afterward when the documentary become a hit and they interview her sister 15 years later. I'm always interested in possession stories because I absolutely love The Exorcist. It's my all-time favorite horror movie. Everything else doesn't hold up, but I've never read a possession book, so maybe this is the one to finally break through. The next book is Hexed by Thomas Olde Heuvelt. This book is kind of having to do with some folklore around a town that is haunted by an old witch. They are all quarantined because of this curse that involves the witch, and these teens decide that they're sick of being quarantined to their town, so they want to let the witch free. Obviously, I'm going to assume some terrible crap ensues, and hopefully this book will be scary. I've heard pretty good things. It was blurred by Stephen King, but I feel like that's not saying much because I swear to God his name is on every book I've ever seen. But I'm interested. I feel like witch stuff isn't totally up my alley until it's like actually horror-y, but even then, not usually. But I feel like the folklore aspect of it makes it more interesting to me. The next book is Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant, which I believe is Shawnee McGuire's like pen name or something. I don't know. Basically, I believe this book is about killer mermaids, and that's kind of all you had to say. Once again, I'm not into like mythical creatures or anything really until you turn it into a horror story, and then I am in. I'm so excited to read this. I bought it when it was on sale on Kobo for about $3, and this is like definitely near the top of the list. I'm really excited for this one. The next book is Blood Brothers by Nora Roberts. I don't know a ton about this one. I just know that it has to do with a small creepy town and a bunch of friends getting together. I love stories with like tight friend groups, but I haven't read a lot of them, especially because they seem to happen a lot more in paranormal books, and that's not usually my jam. I'm interested in this one. I know it's a series. Hopefully it'll be good. The next book is Feast of Sparks by Simone. I read A Lesson in Thorns a couple months ago and absolutely loved it. I couldn't get into it at first, but by about the halfway point I was so in, and so I was super excited for the second book to come out. So I ended up buying it the night it came out, but then all of a sudden I started reading terrible reviews. So that's really unfortunate, but I am looking forward to giving it a try for myself. I feel like some of the things that people are bothered by, I don't think I'm going to be as bothered by, because I don't know, things don't bother me like that as much in books, in real life obviously, but in erotica books especially, I guess I just tend to take them a little less seriously, so I think I'll be more okay with it, but who knows, I'm hoping to love it. I do feel like it still kind of goes with the October fall vibes because of their whole weird ancient ritual cult orgies, so I'm counting it. The next book on my list is Born Madly by Trisha Wolfe. I read Born Darkly a couple months ago before I stopped reading, and I really enjoyed it. I didn't like love it, but it was good. It's about a girl who is a psychiatrist to this guy who's in prison, and he kind of manipulates her a little bit, but like also they kind of fall in love, and I think everyone, including myself, compared it to Joker and Harley Quinn vibes, and I was into it. I'm very excited for the next one. I don't know if it's like near the top of my list, but it's definitely dark and kind of interesting. So the next smut book on my list is Kill Switch by Penelope Douglas. This is part of the Devil's Night series. It is the third book in the series. This one is about Damien. They're just about a group of boys who always do some crazy crap on Devil's Night and kind of their love interests, and it goes back to them in high school and also goes into the present. Because it's things that take place the night before Halloween, I figured it was perfect for this month. I really enjoy the series, and I'm looking forward to reading this one because I've heard it's a lot of people's favorite. The next book on my list is Baby Teeth by Zoe Stage. I've put this on a ton of TBRs. I need to get this finished. I would compare this to The Omen. It's about kind of this shitty kid who's like possibly evil and treating her mom like crap, but she's like 7, so I guess I shouldn't be calling her shitty because that's probably rude, but whatever. And the dad doesn't see it because she acts like a princess in front of him, and the mom is starting to get scared of her. I'm really interested in that. I'm hoping it's really good. This cover appeals to me. I just feel like this is one of the books that I've been wanting to read for so long, and I don't know why I haven't gotten to it. The next book on my TBR is Your Life is Mine by Nathan Ripley. This is about a woman whose father was a cult leader who died many years ago, but in the present her mother gets murdered, and she believes that it has to do with the cult her father led. I'm, like everyone else, I'm very interested in cults. This sounds super cool. I got this at the thrift store for a couple bucks, and I was so excited to get it because this has been on my like to buy list ever since it came out, so I'm excited to get this to this one. The next book on my list is An Unkindness of Magicians by Kat Howard. This isn't normally something I'd really read, but for whatever reason, I'm in the mood. Once again, I think it was Murphy Napier who talked about it in a way that made me very interested in it. So hopefully I like it. I'm reading it on Scribd. I believe it is about a girl who comes and she wants to like destroy her magic school or something, but the thing that got me interested in it is I believe Murphy was talking about how there's all these like trials and games or something that they have to go through, and that's more what interested me, because that always was like the Goblet of Fire book with all their trials. That was like one of the more interesting books to me in the series, so I'm hoping that this is just a book full of that, but also like an evil witch, because I love that too. Then I have one manga to read called Bad End Tonight. This has to do with a play and a missing page from a script and a mansion that they all get trapped in with like a bunch of different weird characters. I'm not really sure. It's a very vague description, and I kind of just picked it up on a whim because it sounded like a good manga for Halloween. So I'm gonna read this month, and hopefully I'll know a bit more about it during my wrap up. And then I also have a couple comics that I want to read. I want to read more of The Walking Dead. I'm about 3/4 of the way through the entire series, and I believe I bought the rest of the series on Comixology, which is where I read pretty much all of my comics, because frankly physical comics are really expensive and I can't afford that, but online comics on Comixology, if I wait for sales, they're pretty good. So I'd like to read that. That's the only one that I've started. The next 3 comic series I have not started, and I'll be starting them from the beginning and reading a bit of them. The first one is called The Woods. It's about a bunch of people who vanish on one particular day, and then they find themselves in the middle of the woods. And it's creepy. I don't know. The second series I want to read is called Nailbiter. This sounds a little like Silence of the Lambs, where an FBI agent or something has to work with a famous serial killer in order to find a missing person. And the last thing I want to read this month is a comic called Postal. It sounds very similar to a book I read a couple months ago called The Blinds, and I really, really love that book. It was a big surprise for me. So I'm looking forward to reading this too. It's about a town that is kind of a refuge for criminals, but they haven't had any problems since they became a town. All of a sudden they have their first murder, and it kind of takes place from there. So those are all the books I hope to read in October. The chances of that happening are slim to none, but I love horror and I love Halloween. And I'm also going to do a video on the 10 horror movies I hope to watch this month, and I hope you'll come back and watch that. Bye.